Space Cowboy Books presents Simultaneous Times, a science and speculative fiction podcast. Short stories to stir the imagination by contemporary authors.
Beautiful Game by Toshiya Kamei, with music by Fog Machine, read by Jenna Hanchey.
The play-by-play announcer leans into her microphone, her fleshy jowls wobbling. Spectators dressed in colorful attire form a quilt of humanity along the ball court. The Jumbotron broadcasts a statuesque blonde in designer clothes, seated on a golden throne. Baroness Chamberlain. She's accompanied by a masked sharpshooter, rifle in full view. She snickers at us plebeians, and I shiver as a mixture of dread and excitement gnaws my gut. Today is a good day to die, I mumble before taking my position. Today's opponent is Javier Alvarado, a tall, half-naked man with bronze skin and jet-black hair, wearing a deer headdress. His muscle-bound body moves with grace, too beautiful to destroy. I admire and pity my fellow prisoner. Via my VR glasses, I send a code to the nanobots racing through my veins to trigger my transformation. A tingling sensation courses through my body, morphs into a burning one, and escalates into intense pain. I struggle to hide a grimace. Jaguar spots appear one by one, quickly covering my body. A third eye appears on my forehead, and my mouth becomes a jaguar's muzzle, replete with sharp fangs. Javier transforms into a magnificent deer. The referee tosses the ball high into the air, and time crawls to a stop, as if all the oxygen is being sucked out of the Estadio Zibalba. Named after the Mayan underworld, the stadium is the first of its kind in Nuevo Azteca to employ human sacrifice as entertainment for Baroness Chamberlain and the other gringo colonizers. They pretend the defeated are sacrificed to appease the ire of the ancient gods. The ball lands between my opponent and me, and we scramble for possession. A modified version of Olamalitsi begins. Adrenaline rushes through me. Abeni Yoshino Noriega! My multicultural name echoes through the air. A bloodthirsty crowd jeers and cheers. I was named Abeni, a name of Yoruba origin, because I'm the daughter Papa prayed for after begetting nothing but sons. Ironically, I have been pitted against men all my career as an athlete. As a subjugated race, we Nuevo Aztecs have no say in how the game is played. The Olympic Committee has deemed I have an unfair advantage over other women because of my 46XY DSD conditions. In other words, I have an X and Y chromosome in each cell and a high testosterone level. The coordinators even threatened to send a doctor to examine my genitals. How insulting. My novia is still upset. She says she can vouch for my womanhood any day. How did I get my Japanese surname? According to family lore, perhaps fortified by shots of aguardiente, Abuelo is descended from a samurai who stopped in Cuernavaca on his way to Rome. I refuse to take any DNA tests to verify my ancestry. I have no desire to destroy myths. I'd rather embrace them. Javier lunges at me. I stumble, lose the ball, and retreat to recover myself. My left knee is bruised from the collision. Javier kicks the ball and buries it in the back of the net. The crowd roars, and tears sting the back of my eyes. The referee tosses the ball again. I collect myself and hook my foot around Javier's ankle, hoping to tap the ball out of his reach. He tries to sidestep me, but I'm too fast. He grunts as I dash toward his goal. He comes up from the left, a furred monster in my periphery, but his breathing shows he's overextending himself. I feint. Javier stumbles, and I send the ball careening into his goal. We're tied. We exchange blows, but neither of us gives an inch. A whistle announces the end of the game. A draw. I shake hands with Javier. The crowd boos, their thirst for blood unquenched. All eyes are on Baroness Chamberlain, who grimaces. "Not bad," Javier says with a smile. "You're a worthy opponent." "You're not bad either," I say. "I'm glad they won't be sacrificing you." He laughs, and we head toward the tunnel. I don't want to return to my drab underground room, but I have to bathe before I'm forced to participate in media interviews. "No one should be sacrificed," Javier says. "Seriously, why do we fight? We both know who the real enemies are." I've heard this all before. I've said similar to my fellow competitors, but I don't want the swarming cameras to catch the words on Javier's lips. Not after we failed to give the Baroness her spectacle. "You're right," I say. "But what you're implying is dangerous. It'll get both of us killed." We're steps away from the safety of the tunnel when someone hands Baroness Chamberlain a microphone. "This won't do!" The Baroness's voice pierces the stadium. "One of you must die!" She then waves for her sharpshooter to fire his rifle. Javier shoves me behind him, and I gasp when he drops to his knees. His blood is as dark as a jungle pool. "Bastards got me," Javier says as he dies. "Javier!" I cry. But the crowd's braying drowns me out. Light fades from his eyes and he goes limp. "No!" I scream. I run for the Baroness's golden throne. I leap at the sharpshooter and grab his rifle before he can shoot again. We struggle until I overwhelm him. I press the stolen rifle to the Baroness's forehead. As the crowd around us roars, all I can see is Javier lying in a pool of his own blood, light in his deer-like eyes flickering away. The crowd begins to stampede. Other guards step closer with weapons drawn, and I pull the trigger.
I, Robot by Ali Trotta, with music by Dr. Auxiliary, read by Jean-Paul Garnier. Tell me that I am more than my history, programmed and preordained, choices laid out, pre-chosen, selected for me based on outside inputs. Tell me there is more to me than wires and code, that I can learn to laugh with my whole heart. Only it is cogs and electrical impulses, a framework of science, so delicate that surely it is also beautiful. Am I a monster? Was I not too born? I do not breathe. I do not sing. I do not love. But what if I learn? The heart is a symbol and a muscle, both functional and mythological. Can I not too be both machine and miracle? Please let me discover who, not what, I am. Trip Through Eternity by James Machel, with music by TSG, read by Jean-Paul Garnier. This ain't worth the paper I rolled it in, grimaced Nathan, passing the joint to his best and often worst friend, Bill. It's getting so the only thing you can actually get high on these days is fighting. He had a pair of bruised knuckles as credentials. Bill gave it back when the colonel returned with another baggie of ominous brown resin. It tasted worse than it looked, but he snatched it immediately to share with the only person who matched his appetite for violence. Their greatest enemy was boredom. "You boys look kind of lonely over here," said the colonel, in a tone so cordial none of her troops would have recognized it. "Why don't you sign up with the others? I'm sure you'd have a lot more fun in space." Her face said they wouldn't. Bill froze her with a rotten smile and two glittering eyes that might have looked menacing if he wasn't rolling another joint. "Don't you know?" he said, showing off the tabs in the card section of his wallet. "We just got back from there." Though LSD pacified them for the afternoon, it was still illegal, and he expected the colonel to place them under military arrest. Nathan was twice her size, and his fights were always more of a spectacle when his opponents folded like hay. "I'm talking about actual space," replied the colonel. "With all the resin you can handle and then some. Not to mention a salary for once in your lives." "Dunno about going to war for more of this stuff," murmured Nathan. "How long do you think it takes to import a stash? A week? A month? We're talking half a year in storage. You have to go to the source for the freshest highs, and believe me, they'll make that acid of yours feel like you never left the spaceport." "What even is this?" cried Bill, flicking a piece of resin between the salt and pepper shakers like they were goalposts. "Looks like dried dog turd." The colonel lifted the joint from Nathan's slack fingers and took a drag herself. "It's from a carnivorous plant. Don't know if it's got something to do with the soil up there, or it just grows on the light from Jupiter, but there's nothing down here to match it." Nathan began to grate the next chunk with his fingernails, the pieces falling into the rolling paper to be mixed with tobacco. His flesh was now alive with teasing prickles, warmth spreading like the satisfaction after beating someone senseless. "Why do you want us?" he asked with a tone that implied, "Nobody else does." "You look like boys who won't shy away from a fight, and fighters are what we need. The rebels want to charge us for our own resin. We've got to remind them that Jupiter is still Earth's vassal. Living on one of its moons doesn't make it theirs any more than a tramp owns the park after they've slept a few nights on one of its benches." Bill felt a fire in the pit of his stomach. He couldn't count the number of times he'd been told to move from a shelter or a squat or a street corner because they didn't belong to him. And since he had no one to punish, it might as well be the rebels. "Thought the drugs were meant to be free," scowled Nathan. The poster outside the recruitment office said so. It had been converted from the all-night diner where they ordered coffee and left without paying. The offer sounded like bait to round up junkies, and they leapt at the chance of being detained somewhere warm. "Have I asked you for any money?" she sighed. Nathan, who was especially sensitive about his intelligence, snatched what was left of his joint and ground it on a coaster. The scattering of ash looked like stars, and the burn mark, slightly darker than its surroundings, made him think of a black hole. He suddenly saw himself in a bunker, ditching battle to get high. The smoke, due to the absence of buoyancy and low gravity, didn't rise and concentrated around the source, making the joint like an ice cream cone. He greedily took a bite. "Well, if that's going to be your attitude," sighed the colonel, who rolled up the contract but kept it by her side, "you probably don't deserve to sleep in clean beds, as much smoke as your lungs can hold, and a furnished trip through eternity." The resin wasn't nearly as strong as the acid from earlier, merely reviving the comfortable days, but it kept his come down at bay. He wouldn't have left his blanket during the agony of paranoia, let alone traded his gravity and roots for orders. "Give it here," cried Nathan, snatching the paper and aggressively signing his name as a child might with crayon. He wrote his phone number after, which was all the army needed to track him down and basically the equivalent of signing in blood. As always, Bill followed him into the conflict. They shared a phone, which didn't surprise the colonel, who smirked as she saw the replicated number. The people who went to space usually didn't have much to lose on Earth. It was probably why the Army opened their recruitment center in the paranoid fear zone of a drug-ridden ghetto. "Well, I guess I'll be seeing both of you again very soon." She ushered them out of their seats, and Nathan realized he was right to join, even without the promise of drugs or a friend to come with him. At least in space, when you burned out, you did it somewhere no one could tell you to move along. "Looks like we did what we came to do." "What's that?" asked Bill, stuffing his pockets by the door. "We got into a fight." In this episode of Simultaneous Times, you heard Beautiful Game by Toshiya Kamei, with music by Fog Machine. I, Robot by Ali Trotta, with music by Dr. Auxiliary. And Trip Through Eternity by James Machel, with music by TSG. Theme music by Dane Lusko. Be sure to visit us at our bookstore in Joshua Tree, California, or visit us online at spacecowboybooks.com.